Hi, and welcome to another LRCC Soundbite. Well, last week I told you about how a young farmer called Saul was chosen to be king of Israel. This week I said I'd tell you about how he got on. Well, to tell you the truth, it wasn't all that well. Things started off okay, but as the story goes on, Saul turns out to be someone who would twist things to fit what he wanted. Even at times it seemed that he was maybe quite weak and would do what other people wanted him to do, instead of doing what he knew was right. When this started happening with the things that God had told him to do, then that started to become a real problem. One time Saul was with his army, ready to repel one of the neighbouring country's armies, and they'd been told to wait for the prophet, for Samuel, for him to come and make a sacrifice to God so that God would bless them. Unfortunately, they got impatient and Saul decided to just go ahead and make the sacrifice himself. The problem was that Saul wasn't allowed to make the sacrifice to God by the laws that God himself had given. That was one time that God started warning that Saul wasn't going to be king much longer. The final straw was another incident involving Saul and the army. God had told them not to keep anything after a battle, but instead they kept all sorts of things and all the best animals, all the best ones. And this time, God gave Samuel a message to give to Saul, that the kingdom this time was going to be given to somebody else. Saul was sad and asked for forgiveness again. The thing is that while forgiveness is something we can ask for, and certainly as Christians, I can tell you with confidence that God promises to forgive anyone who is truly sorry. Forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences for our actions. In this case, Saul was going to lose the kingdom, his position. It wasn't going to happen immediately, but it was going to happen. And we'll find out next week who would be the person who would be chosen to take over. In the meantime, there's a really important bit in the middle of this whole story that I'd like to tell you about. You see, when Saul kept all those best animals, his excuse was that he only kept them so they could be sacrificed to God. Now that sounds plausible, a good idea. You know, it wasn't me, I wasn't doing it for my benefit, I was doing it for God. Personally, it comes across more like an excuse, and there was probably more of an intention to just keep one or two for himself, and maybe for some of the other men. You know, after all, a few of them getting lost on the way to the temple wouldn't really be noticed. But then Samuel tells Saul something that is quite profound, and I'd suggest is still true for Christians today. Samuel said this, he said, "Does the Lord really want sacrifices and offerings? No, he doesn't want your sacrifices. He wants you to obey him." For Saul, going against the things that God had told him to do was a problem. Whatever reason or excuse didn't matter. All he was asked was to follow the instruction that was given. So if I say that's true for us today, what do I mean? What does God ask us to do today? Well, there's good news. It's not hard. All he asks is that we believe in Jesus and what Jesus did for us and trust him to forgive us and to look after us. The most important thing to God is restoring the relationship between us and him, so that we can talk to him, so we can get to know him, understand how much love he has for us, and live forever with him. Jesus came and died on a cross so that could happen. That's the Easter story. And I'd be really happy to share more details of that with you if you'd like. Just email me or come and see us one Sunday afternoon, 44 Lindbergh Road, any time between 2 and 5. That is all God asks of us. He might ask us to do other things as well. After we've done that first bit, in our case, start LRCC. But he never asks us to do anything that we can't do without his strength. He never asks us to be alone again. He's always there with us. It's as simple as that. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.